There are books that, even if they are not explicitly esoteric, and sometimes they are even novels, the story they tell is impregnated with esoteric teachings. And this book, The Magus, by John Fowles, is one of them. So let me give you some context about this book. The story tells about Nicholas, a young Englishman, very disillusioned, who takes a teaching job on a Greek island. Here he encounters a wealthy and enigmatic man, Maurice Conchis, who invites him into a series of elaborate psychological games or God games involving deception, illusion, manipulation. As Nicholas becomes entangled in these surreal experiments, he meets a woman who may be real or perhaps a part of the experiments themselves. In any case, he falls in love with her, Lily or Julie, whatever her name. All these staged experiences in which Nicholas goes through, that they are so real that he thinks they are real, and eventually he discovers they were all staged. All these experiments lead him and the reader to wonder whether we really perceive reality, or perhaps we perceive a reality staged by others. Not intentionally, at least not always, but because they are performing their own piece and vision of reality, which interfaces our perception and vision of reality, and together a new reality is somehow staged. Because every reality is relative, depending on which level of knowledge, maturity, or inner state we are in when we face that experience. And yet other people, quite many, do consciously stage a reality in order to manipulate others and reach, therefore, their own personal goals. Analyzing the different experiences he goes through participating in this experiment, he becomes aware of the subtle energy that weaves the plot of what we call reality. Learning to change the perspective of every situation we go through in life, we learn to take better decisions. Because after all, we are in this earthly experience to grow, to amplify our awareness, and to train our ability to cope with evil without becoming evil ourselves, in response, for instance, to very mean and awful situations the others impose on us. When you read books about Spiritism, which was very popular in the 19th century, where many small groups of people met to contact the dead, for instance in the books of Allan Kardec, read the presentation I put here. Or if you read the books of Dr. Michael Newton, PhD, that in the 1960s he began to use hypnosis to help his patients to understand the source of their troubles, which seemed inexplicable. And to his surprise, when he gave the order, go back when this problem originated, his patients began to talk about other lives and the trauma not resolved that they experienced in other lives, and became a kind of knot in their psyche, still manifesting in this life, in this present life. Consider that at that time, the idea of previous lives was not yet contemplated. So it was something astonishing for Dr. Newton to hear these stories. And he began to investigate further, and you find many books he wrote, which I warmly suggest because they are pure. The reason that emotionalism, which exploded with the New Age, that distort many things. So in his books, when he asked the patient in deep hypnosis, read please a description. So when Dr. Newton asked, for instance, how did he or she experience the passage from life to the next life, the other life, all of them spoke of a relief and the big surprise in looking back at the experience on Earth, in realizing that everything was staged. Everything was an act. We come to Earth to experiment all kinds of realities, from the very bad ones, the worst of the worst, to the very beautiful, divine, ecstatic experience that we may live in this earthly life. When a soul decides to incarnate on the earth or on other realities in the universe, together with the guides, the masters, they plan what kind of experience that soul is ready to experience in order to grow. When this is done, they check what kind of physical body is available and if there are all the necessary characters to stage that story. If some are missing, they somehow send a message to the souls in order to find someone volunteering to play the specific character needed for that particular play. And of course, there will be souls who need to experience that particular character so that they incarnate together and come here onto Earth to play the act, the performance that will enable them, all of them, to expand their consciousness even when they fail in achieving the goals that they were planning to achieve. On the earth, we lose the clarity we have in the other world, because here on earth, the body is heavy, is aching, the emotions are always involved and usually color things in a way that it is not the best way to deal with a certain experience. Then the mind always calculating what is the best answer, and the three together, body, emotions, and mind, often are not at all well synchronized. The lesson is to keep the distance and watch the entire situation through the inner observer that has got no emotions, no personal thoughts, and is simply an observer. The inner observer knows what is the best answer in every situation. The problem is to tame the emotions and the mind, which are constantly interfering, and at the same time to train the body so that it will be strong enough to cope with the situation.